Hi, I'm Kevin Harrington,
I'm Samba Bachili,
Nina Vaca, Chief Executive Officer of Pinnacle Group,
an original shark from the hit TV show Shark Tank,
CEO of ADS Group,
the largest Latina-owned workforce solutions in America.
I first identified myself as an entrepreneur when I was 15 years old.
My mother and father immigrated here with a suitcase and a dream. I had a front row seat to entrepreneurship. I am living proof of what is possible in this country.
Today, the marketplace is very tough.
The challenge for African market today is its access to capital.
The number one reason why we can't scale as entrepreneurs is access to capital.
What makes Glow so different and so powerful is the access to experts, gurus, mentors, coaches, financiers, venture people, money.
When I started my business, I immediately went to engage with different communities, different platforms. Glow makes that experience digital. A digital platform makes it so much faster and so much easier for you to meet like-minded people.
The financial platform that Glow have that make Glow unique.
Glow is about commerce, Glow is about community, and Glow is about having access to capital.
Glow is an asset to every entrepreneur in this country and globally.
It's about helping you take your business, your idea to the next step.
Hi there, and welcome to Business Acceleration 2.0. My name is Michelle Lemons-Picenti. I'm the CEO and founder of the Global Leaders Organization, or GLOW as we like to call it. And GLOW is the sponsor of this program, Business Acceleration 2.0, the show where leaders go to grow. So we're thrilled that you could be here with us today. Before we bring on our guests, we're going to discuss a little bit about GLOW for those that are here for the very first time. GLOW is a membership organization that was based on four foundational principles, all starting with C, the 4 C's. So one is community, because as an entrepreneur, it's a lonely place at the top, and we help create a peer-to-peer network for you so that you can learn and grow from one another in your network. We have local chapters that you can become a member of. We have online programming. We have forums. It's really about learning and growing from one another in a community aspect. We also have commerce, because as an entrepreneur, you're looking to grow your business, and you do that through transactions. So with our commerce, we have a marketplace where you can promote, advertise, and market your company's products and services as many times as you'd like. And then finally, the thing that really makes us really unique is the capital component. So if you're looking to raise capital, whether it be debt or equity, GLOW is here to help assist you in finding the right capital at the right time. And then last but not least is our content, and that's why you're here today. We bring you some of the most thought-provoking thought leaders, industry experts, celebrity CEOs on the planet. We bring them right here to you every Thursday. And then those speakers actually come to you in the chapters, so you can get to meet some of these individuals live, face-to-face. So today, our guest is Mr. Bill Bachrach. And Bill is an individual that has been a very successful speaker, author, coach, trainer. He's got a whole training business, and we're going to learn about his subscription membership business. He's been very successful in the financial services industry, and that's where he's really made his fame. And he's here today to share some of his secrets that he has worked with individuals in that industry. But we're going to look to see how we can bring them over to other industries and how they would support other entrepreneurial aspects. So without further ado, Mr. Bill Bachrach. Bill, so nice to see you, and thanks for being here today.
Well, Michelle, I really appreciate the invitation, and I'm excited about the work that you're doing, the way that you're bringing together the content and the capital and entrepreneurs together. I couldn't agree with you more about it being it's a lonely place. But when, we entrepreneurs get together, we have that kind of feeling like, these are my people. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I feel probably just like all the other entrepreneurs who are watching.
Well, again, thank you. And I know you've got a lot to share. We're going to jump right into it. You've got an aspect or perspective on fundamental successes, and I want to hear about those and dive deep into that. So it's your perspective on the importance of success fundamentals. What is that?
Well, you touched on it when you talked about what you do with GLOW, right? You've got these principles, and so I think it's so easy to get seduced by this idea that it's all about innovation and creativity and, coming up with some, special thing that nobody's ever thought of. The reality is that most of us mortals are probably not going to be, we're not going to be Walt Disney. We're not going to be Steve Jobs. We're not going to, invent something totally new or create a whole new industry. It's just probably not how most of us will operate in our lives. And we'll be enormously successful by knowing and adhering to the fundamentals. And even for those people like Walt Disney, who were enormously imaginative and innovative and created some amazing things, behind the scenes, it was Walt Disney's brother, Roy, who was the first CEO and the operator. So this idea of knowing what the fundamentals are, adhering to the fundamentals, I believe that your success is determined by understanding and executing on the fundamentals. And if things aren't going as well as you'd like for them to be going, chances are somewhere you're violating one or more of the fundamentals. And the beauty of that, it's relatively easy to fix. Does that make sense, Michelle?
Yeah, but okay. So I'm sure everybody's going, okay, well, what are the fundamentals?
Well, we may not have time to discuss every single fundamental, but I think most of us have, if you've been remotely successful in business, these fundamentals, they either come up because somebody actually says, hey, these are the fundamentals, or you personally experience them and you discover the fundamentals. And one of my favorite stories, and I'm probably dating myself a little bit here, but when I was a young entrepreneur in my 20s, really getting started in business, there was a great story about Vince Lombardi, the great Green Bay Packers coach and legend, won the first Super Bowl, won the championship before there was a Super Bowl. And he was famous for starting his practice, the first day of practice or training camp, when last year's world champions were getting together. You can imagine him standing there holding up a football going, this is a football. And the object is to get this football across that goal line. And in my brain, I kind of was imagining these kind of snarky, smart alecky professional football players, Bart Starr and Paul Hornung, kind of going, yeah, coach, we've kind of seen that football before. You might recall last year we used that football, scored a lot of points and won the championship. And so the fundamentals are just they can be just that basic. For example, work ethic is a fundamental. And there's a famous saying, the only place where success comes before work is in the dictionary. And what you find is that so many people and so many businesses just sometimes get away from that simple fundamental. So we're just coming out of COVID, and there was this idea that, well, because COVID happened, that's a bit of an excuse to not be successful. Well, most of the people that I know, I just like to hang out with successful people. They actually grew their businesses during COVID. And that's a combination of two fundamentals. That's the work ethic fundamental. Most of them worked harder. So you don't work less during something like COVID. And I've been through lots of these significant events. I started in the 1980s in business. So the market crash of 87, there were recessions in 91 and 94. There was a thing called Y2K that not everybody will remember, Michelle, which is a big deal in the late 90s. There was the tech meltdown. Then there was September 11th and the global financial crisis of 08 and 09. And then we had a big run of 11 years without something major. And then there was COVID. There'll be more things like that. And the other fundamental at play is adversity is a springboard to success. And so it's not that those of us who understand the fundamentals hope for adversity, but we know that adversity can be harnessed and you actually have a chance to differentiate yourself when times are difficult. And I think it's Warren Buffett who says something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing here, that, when the tide goes out, we find out like who's naked. And so the tide kind of covers up. I mean, everybody is effective during a tailwind. So those are two fundamentals at play. And, I'll just pause there and see if you have any questions or comments about that.
No, but I think that's a great lead in for you talking about how failure can be better than success can for you. What do you mean?
Yeah, that's actually another fundamental at work. So what I mean by that is it's not just that you learn from failures. I mean, so that is a fundamental. There's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback. So if you really pay attention to your successes and your failures, then you learn a lot from that. So, for example, we're both very familiar with the professional speaking business. Your husband and I are both fortunate to be in the Hall of Fame for professional speakers. And one of the things that we learned to do very early on is you learn to watch video of yourself, listen to audio recordings. Or one of the most painful things that you can do is to actually have a speech transcribed and then read every word you actually said. So there are lessons in failure, but I'm really talking about something a little bit different than that. I'm talking about the idea of setting really big goals. And one of my favorite books was written in 1959 by Dr. David Schwartz. He was a professor at Georgia State University, and it's called The Magic of Thinking Big. And I first read that book in the 80s when I was kind of setting the foundation, or sort of continuing to set the foundation of the fundamentals. And it's kind of funny to read the book because he talks about things like, you could have a personal income of like $25,000. You could afford a $10,000 house. So if you kind of strip away the fact that there's been some inflation, then since then, those fundamentals
$1,000
are. Yeah, could you imagine? You probably wouldn't want to live in a $10,000 house, Michelle. But the fundamentals are the same. So this idea that when can failure be better than success is you set a big goal, and I would suggest that you're better off setting a big goal and failing to achieve it than setting a small goal and achieving it, right? So failure is better than success when the result is bigger. And a lot of people would say, well, no, you want to set, I hate that idea of the SMART goals. So your goals should be specific and measurable and attainable. I think is it attainable? And then
Yeah.
realistic. I hate the idea of realistic goals. I do not think your goals should be realistic. I think your goals should be so big that they force you to be creative. They force you to be committed. They force you to be resourceful. They force you to consistently execute the fundamentals. So every professional sports team, even some of the not so great teams, their goal is to win the championship. And so that's what I mean when I say that sometimes failure is better than success. I would rather have a big goal and fail to achieve it than have a medium or small goal and achieve it. Am I explaining that well?
Well, is that because you're saying on a big goal, you're going so high on a big goal that even if you don't get there, you get close to it? Is that what you mean? That you're
Exactly. If you use like Olympic medals, better to set a goal to win the gold medal. And then what it does is it affects everything that you do. It alters how you think about your training. It alters how you think about your work. It alters how you think about the people that you surround yourself with. It alters what you study. It alters how well you implement what you're learning, because you're thinking, man, I've got to I've got to I've got to do more to achieve that big goal. So even if you fall short of the goal, you've achieved more. I was listening to a sports psychologist. His new audiobook is called Make Your Next Shot the Best Shot. And his name is Bob Rotella, and he's a sports performance psychologist. And he's worked not exclusively, but significantly in golf. I mean, he's coached some of the best professional golfers and the most successful professional golfers. And even though I believe I'm a good student and implementer of the fundamentals, he believes that Tiger Woods would have won a lot more majors if Jack Nicklaus had won a lot more majors, because Tiger Woods openly said, my goal is to win more majors than Jack Nicklaus. And Tiger Woods had won no majors when he set that goal. Jack had won 18. And so Bob Rotella's perspective is, what if Jack had won 30 majors and Tiger had set a goal to win 30 majors? So ironically, he's suggesting that Tiger set his goal too low, that instead
Mhm.
of setting his goal based on how many majors Jack Nicklaus won, he should have set a goal to win 25 or 30 majors. And he believes, as an expert in performance psychology, that Tiger, instead of winning 15 majors to Jack's 18, if Jack had won 30, Tiger probably would have won 24 or 25 by now, just by the power of setting the big goal.
Interesting. Okay, I get what you're saying now. I like that actually. And that rings true for me and just in my own personal experience and my husband's actually as well. It's such a, the story of his, but I don't want to go there. So we're gonna
I
stay.
love that story, though. I love that
Yeah.
story. So,
So we're staying on your topic because I love this about finding an ideal, obviously being the key word here. So you go in and you look for the ideal client for how do you say it? So when you're working with financial advisors, you want to create the ideal life. That's what it is, by building an ideal business exclusively with the ideal clients. Now that's great for the financial industry. Can that transfer into other industries, other businesses?
sure. And, that's my specialty. So I was a successful financial advisor. I developed a methodology called values-based financial planning. And that really, I kind of joke about this. That's the last time I was innovative. So I created this methodology really for myself as a young financial advisor with no background around wealthy people. And I wanted to figure out, I want to build a business with wealthy people because wealthy people pay financial advisors more than middle income or poor people. It seems very obvious, yet most financial advisors get stuck. They get stuck working too many hours for too little money for too many of the wrong clients. And so what we propose is that you should set a goal to create your ideal life by building an ideal business exclusively with ideal clients. And that completely changes their perspective. It's like, ideal. Well, that's perfect. Is perfect attainable? Well, maybe, but it's not going to be attained by accident. And so your question is, does that value promise, that's our value promise, create your ideal life by building an ideal business with ideal clients? And over the years, we've had a variety of ways that we help financial advisors do that. Today, we do that with a subscription, a membership to our virtual training platform called Advisor Roadmap. To answer your question, does it transfer? The answer is absolutely. So every single business, you could say, well, first of all, as the entrepreneur, as the owner, what is the vision for your ideal life? And it should start there because, yes, your business is about serving your clients. And notice I deliberately use language. I'm going to point this out. I do not believe in having a value proposition. You have a value promise. So what are you promising your clients? Notice
Mhm.
I will not, it's not an accident that I do not say the word customer. I don't believe in customers. I believe in clients. Clients is much more relational. Customer is transactional. So as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, one of the reasons you do what you do is you have control over your life. A famous, it's a fundamental coined by wealthy people. True wealth is discretionary time. One of the benefits of having money is money buys you time, and time is actually more important than money. So they're connected, but among the two things, time is more important than money because it's quality of life. So the first thing I believe as a business owner, entrepreneur, you should be clear, what is your ideal life? And how does your business, what business would you have if your business was aligned on a springboard to creating your ideal life? So if we have time, I'd be happy to share. I call them, they're just the 6 ideal life questions. And this isn't interactive with the viewers, but I can tell you what the questions are. And then I would recommend that you set aside a couple of hours. I've had people who've set aside the weekend. I've had people who've done this with their spouse or their partner, their whole family, and a family retreat to explore these 6 questions.
So I know that you've written books about this. Can you give us just a teaser, one or two of those questions, and then the individuals watching, they can actually purchase your book and really dive deep into those. But give us a couple.
Well, actually, I haven't written a book about this.
Oh, you
So they're
haven't.
6.
Okay.
They're really easy. So the beauty of watching this, watching the recording of this, is that you can pause. So the 6
Right.
questions won't take long. The first question is, what does your ideal life look like? And you take some time and you write. And I like writing this kind of thing. It's a little more connected, but you can type it. What's your ideal life look like? Number two, what does your ideal life sound like? That might need just a tad of explanation. So, for example, maybe it's the sound of people laughing. If you're a snow skier, I'm an avid snow skier. I like to ski powder. So there's a sound that powder makes when it's deep powder is hitting your goggles to the side of your helmet. Maybe it's the sound of the sweet spot of your golf club, the ball striking the sweet spot of the club. So sound. What does it feel like? And that's sensory specific language, right? What does it look like, sound like, and feel like? Then questions 4, 5, and 6. Who are you with when you're living your ideal life? That will also lead to the flip side of that. Who are you not with? You probably have some people who are in your life and it's less than ideal because of them. And then what are you doing when you're living your ideal life? And then the last question is, who are you being? It could be being happy. It could be being philanthropic. So those are the 6 ideal life questions. And when you have clarity about your ideal life, you have a higher probability of making business decisions that align with that.
Okay, interesting. I want to go back to, I love those 6 questions, and those ring true for me. And we kind of do that with a vision board, sort of same exercise.
A
Yeah.
vision board is excellent. So after you do your ideal life, now create a vision board that
Mhm.
aligns with your ideal life. I'm so happy that you do that. That is
Yeah.
perfectly aligned with that. Exactly.
We do it with our kids too. They love it. Okay, so let's go back. So you've got the subscription model, and you can become a member. Are those members clients, or are they members?
Well, they're both. So because it's a membership business, I would call member is the generic version of that, but we consider them to be clients. And most definitely, since all of our members are financial advisors, because that's the space we're exclusive in, they often, I can't tell you how many times, and I hate these terminologies. I hate this terminology. It's ironic. I'm not trying to be contrarian, but I find it interesting how it just seems like a lot of things financial advisors are trained to do. And maybe all of us as business people or entrepreneurs should question some of the things we're taught to do, is they'll call them cases. I'm working on a case, which is a very insurance oriented piece of terminology. And I don't know about you, but I want the person who's giving me advice about my money so I can achieve my most important goals and fulfill my most deeply held values. I want that person to be thinking of me as a human, thinking of
Right,
my wife and I as humans. Clients are more connected to humans than a case,
right.
or a customer. So yes, we consider our members to be our clients.
Okay, so this leads into your discussion about high trust clients. I know you talk a lot about that. What does that mean?
Well, trust is everything. So I was one of those people who, as a young financial advisor trying to find my way, I feel like I had too much sales training. So sales training is making features and benefits presentations and handling objections and closing, right? The ABCs of selling. Always be closing. Close early, close often, close late. So I have one of my props here. I wasn't anticipating using this, but the problem is that this is how people feel when you behave like a salesperson, right? So they're looking at you like all they see that you see are dollar signs, and so when you treat people like they're your meal ticket, they kind of feel like food. And so I'm the antithesis of that. So my claim to fame, if you will, was to bring trust training, the art of building high trust client relationships. So it's in many ways the opposite of sales training. I do not believe in objections, for example. People ask questions. And if you think of their questions as objections, you tend to hunker down. I'm handling objections. And that's not the physical or the mental place where you want to be. So there's some fundamentals of building high trust client relationships. And the first is asking really good questions. So I have a whole speech about kill the elevator pitch, right? So this whole idea that you have to have a 30-second elevator pitch is, I think, exactly incorrect. If you gave me 30 seconds, and I think I'll take me out of it. If you have 30 seconds, if we take that if we take that analogy literally, I mean, the idea is just the elevator is a metaphor. If you stepped onto an elevator with someone and you had 30 seconds to talk about who you are and what you do, what would you say that would engage them in a way where they want to talk to you some more? And so
Right.
imagine you step on the elevator, you have a 30-second ride, the elevator doors open. What happened during that 30-second elevator ride that they would want to talk to you more? And I don't believe it's the elevator pitch. If
Right.
you put somebody I've trained into that elevator, they're immediately going to ask that person questions. And now, if for the whole 30 seconds, hopefully longer, but in the elevator metaphor, they were talking about themselves. What's important to you? What are your biggest goals? What are your biggest challenges? And they're talking. Now the elevator doors open, and for that whole time, they've been talking, asking good questions. You've been listening with empathy. Now, as they step off the elevator, they want to keep talking to you. So sales says elevator pitch, and trust training says ask good questions and listen to them and go deep. And that's what I call it, moving the needle on the trust dial. So everybody has embedded in their subconscious mind an imaginary trust dial, and everything you say and do moves the needle on the trust dial one direction or the other. And I believe elevator pitches move it the wrong direction. So I would suggest have elevator questions. So if you meet someone and you could help, who could become a client, who could be a potential acquisition, who could become a potential acquirer, who could become a potential partner, even your vendors. Instead of thinking about pitching, think about asking questions. And by all means, and I understand that in raising capital, you go in front of a bunch of VC and you have a pitch deck. Well, your pitch deck should have been created by all the great questions you asked in advance to customize that pitch deck. So questions are the key to building trust, listening with empathy. And then eventually, when it is your turn to talk, you should be able to speak with conviction and be articulate in a way that whatever you're proposing or offering is all about them. So those are a few of the keys to building high trust client relationships. And I know they travel from the financial services industry into any industry, because these are human principles, not just financial services principles. This is just where I've chosen to spend my life focusing.
Right. I ended up getting one of my number one clients at the valet stand. And I did just what you said. I asked her questions about herself as opposed to me giving a pitch about what I was doing and what I was selling. And it ended up creating a relationship in the very beginning that was genuine. And it was it really helped to create that high trust, which is, I think, what you're talking about. Okay. So
Perfect.
talking about
I'm not, Michelle, I'm not surprised that you operate this way.
okay, so if it's all about building this relationship, and it made me think of it because you put on the glasses with the money signs, and you talk about this, is money a motivator to accomplish your goals?
This is, remember, everybody operates from their own bias.
Mhm.
So if it's not a motivator, I think it should be. So, and one of the reasons for that is that you have more credibility when you are successful,
Mhm.
right? And money is so easy to measure. It's another success fundamental, right? So one of the reasons why it was easy for me to say yes when you asked me to be your guest today is because I have an enormous amount of respect for you and Vince, because I know you're successful. Right. So I remember, years ago when you had your speakers bureau, you had a
Mhm.
very successful speakers bureau. So I'm not surprised when whatever you do, I am anticipating you're going to be successful and that you are successful doing it. And part of it is money. So that's that. So I think you should be clear about how, and so let's take your ideal life. So you answer those 6 questions and
Mhm.
you have this ideal life. I'm going to guess your ideal life requires money,
The
right?
one I want, yes, the one I like.
Exactly. I mean, it's you could have a crappy life, maybe doesn't require so much money, but I believe that money is a motivator. I think it should be a motivator, and so I think you should be clear. For example, I think you should all be clear about how much money do you need. If you take your top line business revenue, and then you subtract your business expenses and your taxes, you need to do three things with your business revenue. You've got your business expenses, your taxes, and accumulating some business reserves, right? So if there are some events like COVID or something else that creates an interruption to your cash flow, you've got plenty of cash. So you don't have to lay off employees. You don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to be able to pay your rent. And then some amount of the profit becomes your personal income. So that's the classic thing for most of us as entrepreneurs. I mean, I've been paying myself a salary for a long time now, but for many, many years when I got started, I paid myself last. And there were times when I paid myself nothing. And there were times when I had to put money from my personal account back into the business. And these are common entrepreneurial things that you do. So you should be clear about what does your business have to do so that it creates for you enough income so you can have your ideal present lifestyle, so that you can save and invest so you can become financially independent. Now, I'm not using the R word here. I know entrepreneurs hate the idea of retirement. Retirement sounds like death, uselessness. I'm not talking about retirement. I'm talking about work being optional. Wouldn't you love to have enough money set aside in something outside your business so that if you wanted to, on any given day, you could stop working and still have plenty of money to pay for your ideal life? So there is a number for that, and that's financial independence. Now, you can keep growing beyond that. You can keep building wealth beyond that. Many people choose to do that. But to know that you're actually financially independent is an amazing financial milestone. And it can motivate you. It may not be the ultimate place where you want to be, but it's a milestone along the way. And then, of course, I have a lot of financial advisors and friends who are business owners and entrepreneurs who are like, well, I'm never going to stop working. I mean, you know this, right, Michelle? There's so many business owners that I love what I do and I'm going to die in my office. I'm never going to stop doing this. I'm helping people. I'm making a difference. Speakers and trainers and coaches say this all the time. Financial advisors say it all the time. And I always chuckle and go, well, you act as though you will always have a choice.
Oh, good thing. That's a good comment.
I mean, yeah, maybe you will. Maybe you'll never get hit head on by some type of a health issue, but you could. I mean, 1 out of 4 of us are going to get cancer. I mean, the good news is that cancer is more and more treatable and survivable. So a week ago today, my best friend, who's only 67 years old, was diagnosed with leukemia. So on Sunday night, it was found in a routine blood test. He has no symptoms.
Wow.
It was found in a routine blood test, and there was an anomaly with his white blood count. His doctor called him. They did the blood work on Friday, called him on Sunday, said, go to the ER, check yourself into the hospital. Something's wrong. On Monday morning, they diagnosed leukemia in his blood. By Tuesday, he was on chemotherapy.
Wow.
Right? So I appreciate the fact that this idea of working forever and always being of value and always contributing, maybe it won't happen to you. Maybe it'll happen to a family member. You'll have an epiphany and go, I think I'm going to sell this business. And hopefully the combination of the value of your business and your own savings that you've set aside. It's another mistake a lot of entrepreneurs make, is they think, well, my business is so valuable, I won't set aside any separate money to be financially independent. That's a mistake. I won't go into like financial planning 101, but that's financial planning 101. And you may have an epiphany and go, what I'd really want to do with the rest of my life, now that I have enough money to be financially independent, is I would like to, name a cause. I would like to help find a cure for cancer. I'd like to make a dent in ending human trafficking. There's some pretty significant causes out there that at some point in your life you may find are more important than your business. Mine right now is longevity. So I am I don't get paid. I don't have any stock in the company. There's a company called Human Longevity Inc. They run a program called Health Nucleus 100 Plus. And if I'm not trying to scare you, but if you're wondering, gee, do I have cancer right now? Do I have a brain tumor right now? Do I have an aneurysm? Many of these things are detectable before you have any symptoms. So that's my plug to check out Health Nucleus, 100 plus. It's expensive and worth it, and it's not covered by insurance. And if you can afford it, you should do it.
Yes, I've heard about that. That's great. We've got lots of friends that are starting to do that now. Okay. Now, I know you have written some books, and you've written some books on the value-based, whether it be value-based selling or value-based client relationships. Let's talk about value. We talk a lot about values here at the Glow Business Acceleration Show. So, in regards to values, can you dive into that a little bit for us?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So one of my favorite quotes is Roy Disney, Walt Disney's brother. I mentioned him earlier. He was the first CEO of Disney. And as creative and fabulous as Walt Disney is, I think it's legitimate to say without his brother Roy running the operations and the business side, Disneyland and everything Disney didn't happen just because Walt has incredible imagination. There had to be some consistent execution. I'll say consistent execution of the fundamentals. And he has this great quote: when your values are clear, your decisions are easy. So there are things that motivate human beings. And one of those things at a very emotional and core level, that's why they call them core values, are your values. So values-based selling, the art of building high trust client relationships, values-based financial planning. Those are my two main books. I've co-authored a book called High Trust Leadership and another book called It's All About Them. But the crux of our work is when your values are clear, your decisions are easy. The question becomes, how do you know what your values are, which is fine. That's part of your decisions. But more importantly, how do you learn what other people's values are? And it's really simple. It's an operative question. It's what's important about, you can fill in the blank with something that's relevant for your situation to you. In our case, it's what's important about money to you. Now that's the beginning question. And then there's a values hierarchy. So you build from a base value, what's important about money to you, and people will answer that question. And then you build from the answers to the first question. And let's say they say, well, it's important that I have freedom. So for me, money is freedom. What's important about money is freedom. And then the next question is, what's important about freedom to you? And so my claim to fame, if you will, is to take when I was first learning about values influencing human behavior when I was coming up in the 1980s, it was very complicated. It was, you had to go through some assessment with a psychologist, and it was complicated, and it was time consuming. And as a young financial advisor, I thought, how could I accomplish this in a more conversational way in a meeting with a prospect? And how might that affect a prospect decide to hire me? And my goal was to get wealthy people, and it was hard to get in front of them. I won't go into that whole thing, but as a guy who doesn't come from money, had a lot of limiting beliefs about that. I was working on that too. And then if I could get particularly husbands and wives talking about what's important, it would help me frame my offer in alignment with their values. And I didn't really know what else it would do, but the discovery was phenomenal. It was phenomenal as a 26, 27, 28-year-old financial advisor to have rich people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s look at each other and go, boy, we've never really talked about this. Talking to husbands and wives typically. We know this, but we've never actually kind of expressed it verbally and seen it in writing. And what that did, remember I said earlier, moving the needle on the trust dial. So how does a 27-year-old financial advisor steal rich people clients from their financial advisor of 20 or 25 or 30 years? It's these kinds of conversations. So I won't go deeper than that, just because I think that I'm not trying to turn this into a whole training class, but that's the essence of values. There's values, and that's the emotional payoff. And then there are goals. That's the tangible what. And then there's your current reality. So values and goals should be part of your strategic planning. So this is where you are. This is the tangible, what you want. Your values are the emotional payoff. And it's just fundamental to all good decision making.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Bill, you are a true entrepreneur, just looking at different ways early on, especially of looking at a business opportunity and maybe looking at doing it a little bit differently, which is what all entrepreneurs do, right? They're looking to solve some sort of a problem, maybe in a little bit different way. You moved from, and you did this before COVID. So in 2018, you were already online. So you went into a subscription model type business. What made you decide to do that?
Well, there are a few things. I mean, one of the things we've already talked about it is my ideal life,
Mhm.
right? So I've been making decisions for a long time about creating my ideal life. And I mean, we know each other from the National Speakers Association, and I joined the National Speakers Association in 1989. And I started out as a trainer. So I started out by teaching my methodology. Of course, a lot of people wanted to know. They were like, how are you getting these? How are you stealing wealthy people from their current financial advisor? And so I was pretty obsessive. I was obsessively scripting everything out. So in those days, I was handwriting. How do you open a meeting? Well, first of all, how do you schedule the meeting? How do you open the meeting? What questions do you ask? How do you organize that information in a way that when you do invite them to become a client, if you invite them to become a client, how do you, and I call that's the scripted, repeatable process. So I'm very obsessive about a scripted, repeatable process. And then I recorded all those meetings. I mean, in the days of audio cassettes, I recorded every meeting with a prospect, every meeting with a client, and listened to them. And that is enormously painful. If you want to do something that will just inflict enormous pain, it's to actually watch yourself on video making a presentation or having a conversation. Even audio is enormously painful. Transcribing it. In those days, you had to pay to have it transcribed, and then really looking at every word, all the words you wish you hadn't said, all the things you wish you hadn't done. What's the old saying that whenever you give a talk, there's a presentation, you do it, there's three of them. There's the one you intended to give, the one you actually gave, and the one you wish you had given. And I'm thinking this is what I have to do to be successful. I have to have a scripted, repeatable process. So after you hear, you have 20 meetings, you've heard all the questions you're going to hear. Now, every person doesn't answer or ask every question, but you should have the answers to the questions because you're hearing the same questions over and over and over again. So, and unbeknownst to me, other people wanted to learn that. And my friends I worked for Merrill Lynch, and my friends in the office wanted to know, how are you doing this? And I said, well, here are my scripts. And in those days, I mean, it was pre-word processing. You would take my legal yellow sheets to the copy room and copy them off. So I started training, and I had a training class, and I would enroll people in the training class one at a time for $700. I was doing 30-minute free speeches, not knowing I would ever get paid for that someday. I joined NSA in '89, and you've been around a while too, Michelle. I mean, I think were you in NSA at that time already?
Yeah, but you were one of the very first individuals I met at NSA, which is so funny. Yeah.
And it was 100 talks. There was this goal. You got to, if you're going to be taken seriously, you're doing 100 talks. And then when you've got 100 speeches and you're traveling all over the world giving those talks, then when you get there, you start raising your fee. So I did over 100 talks for many, many years. And it's very rewarding, and it's very financially, there's a big financial payoff. And I always had some kind of back end. I always had a learning system. I always had something that they could buy. Then I started having workshops and coaching programs, and I had a very high-end mastermind group that was very expensive, and I loved doing all of it. But at the end of that, part of my decision is like, yeah, I don't want to get on airplanes that much. I mean, I've got a legitimate 7 or 8 million miles, not bonus miles, like actual miles, and as you know from that business, I mean, you could be speaking in Los Angeles, and then your next speech is in Orlando. And then you go from Orlando to Seattle, and then Seattle to Washington, D.C., and then to Dallas, and then to Chicago. I mean, it's not like it's organized. Well, we'll just move up the California coast. So it'll be convenient. So again, fun, very rewarding, but who wants to do that forever? So I became very interested in this idea of building a sellable business. And so, and I interview people about who built and sold businesses as a NSA thing. We have a series inside the NSA Digital Vault about that. And so there's the ideal life. And then my business wasn't sellable, totally dependent on me. And so all of us, I think, should be considering what makes our business more valuable and sellable is that we have repeatable processes. We have systems and repeatable processes, and the business isn't dependent on us. The other thing that happened is with the progress of artificial intelligence, these online learning platforms, I very sincerely can tell you that if a financial advisor will go through the sequence of courses, they actually do what they're supposed to do and go through the sequence of courses, they are going to more quickly and easily learn our methodology than if they sat with me one-on-one.
Mm.
The interactive nature of the artificial intelligence of online learning is phenomenal. So those of you who've experienced an online course, if it's done
Mhm.
well, and ours are done well, that interact, and you can repeat it as many times as you need to. It gives you
Mhm.
feedback. So I love teaching what I teach, but I don't have the patience to sit with someone and go through it 73 times because that's how many times they need to do it to get it right. But the computer has infinite patience. And
Mhm.
then, of course, this business now is a subscription business, recurring revenue, not dependent on me making a speech or enrolling somebody in a coaching program. And I had 20 coaches, but even when you have 20 coaches who are also bringing in business, the business was still too dependent on me.
Mhm.
So chances are almost every business can have some element of it that is subscription or membership. And I think you seem to be accomplishing that. You've got the content and it's
Right.
online. Then you've also got the community that you've created. You've got the fundraising and the M&A element, raising capital. So I think you seem to be a good example of that. If I can make a plug for someone who I think is expert at this, I would recommend a book called The Automatic Customer. And The Automatic Customer is written by a Canadian, very smart expert named John Warrillow. Maybe he'd be a good guest for your show. Do you know John
Mhm.
already,
I,
Michelle?
I don't, but that sounds really interesting, though.
And it's Warrillow, John Warrillow. I think I pronounced it wrong.
Okay.
It's Warrillow, and he wrote a book called "Built to Sell: The Automatic Customer and the Art of Selling Your Business."
Mhm.
And I, for the most part, like I kind of joke about it, my last innovation was in the 80s when I created values-based financial planning. I mean, it's evolved a little, but it's fundamentally the same thing I've always taught. I'm just really good at finding a process that produces the result and then being the poster child implementer of that process. So
Mhm.
I've used John's methodology to create an automatic customer business for the one that aligns with me. There are 9 subscription type businesses,
Mhm.
and I'm executing one of them that is the best fit for what I do. What is the best fit for me may not be the best fit for you or the other entrepreneurs that are part of your program.
But your book would be called The Automatic Client as opposed to The Automatic Customer, right?
Correct. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I know I cringe whenever I hear that, but you know, what are you going to do? As it turns out, the whole world doesn't listen to me.
Bill, okay, wait. What I love about you is that you walk your talk and you have and are creating your ideal life. This has been amazing. And I knew it would be, but our time has come to the end. And I want to thank you for spending the morning with me and sharing your information with all of our attendees and our audience members. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, Michelle. It's my pleasure to be with you and your clients.
Yeah, we love that. And they are our clients. So, for all those still tuned in, we want to make sure that you tune in next Thursday and come here to grow. It's the show where you go to grow. So, until then, goodbye and God bless.